Next, Kina Chaf Aleph, Arze Alevanoin. Kina is about the Asara Haruge Malchus, the 10 Tanoim that were killed by the Romans during the Shas Shmad. As they tried at this, when they saw that the destruction of the Churban of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was not doing it, Klal Yisrael continued to live on because of Yochanan and Zakkai understood that that if he had the Chachamim, then Klal Yisrael could live on without a building, as holy as that building was. But when the Romans saw that it wasn't working, so now they began a Shas Shmad of restricting Limud Torah on penalty of death. Just as the death of Yoshiyahu was mourned with a special kin of Yirmiyahu, because Shkula Misasa Shel Tzadikim Kisreifas Beis Elikenu, that the death of a tzaddik is the equivalent of burning of the Beis Hamikdash. So now also we focus to other tzaddikim and other communities that died al Kiddush Hashem, and that's where the kinnos take us. We read about the Asar Rugi Machas on Yom Kippur, and it's a much longer period over there because of the aspect that when a tzaddik dies, it brings a kapara, and that's specifically why we say it right after the avodah, because it should be like a carbon oil, carbon chatas. But we also read about it on Tisha B'Av because, in a sense, the loss of the Chachamim was a greater catastrophe than the loss of the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash, although it had Kedusha, at the end of the day, was a building with bricks and stones. And we could still connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Torah and Tefillah. But when they killed Rabbi Akiva, they wanted to uproot Judaism, wanted to uproot Torah and Tefillah. And that, in a sense, is a much greater loss or potential loss for us than the loss of the Beis Hamikdash. The comparisons here for these Tanoim, they're like Arzei Levanon, like the tall tree cedars of Lebanon, Adirei Torah, masters of Torah, Bali Trace and Mishnah Gemara, they shield bearers. In other words, the ways that they fought. The Machloek is to get to the bottom. The blood was spilled like water. The strength was taken away. For them I cry and my eyes will flow with tears. And it starts with the story of Reb Shimon and Reb Yishmael Kohen Gadol. Yadu Gairel Mirishon Lechevrura. They took a Gairel who should go first, and it fell on Reb Shimon. He stuck out his neck. And Reb Shimon Chazer Hegman Laharga B'Nefesh Tzurura. So the executioner killed him in a fit of rage. Mizera Aaron Shalba Vakash Lifkais of the Nagvira. So Reb Yishmael was a descendant of Aaron, asked to be allowed to mourn for a minute. Give me a minute. Let me just process what just happened to my friend. Natalis Reish the son of Kubayis of Menorah Tahara. So Reb Yishmael took Reb Shimon's head and he placed it on his knees as if it was a menorah. Samena Valena Piva Avad Muray, his face towards his face. On of the Amar Pia Miskabe the Torah Bisayim Nixol of Misa Mishuna Chamura. How could the mouth that was involved and spoke such Torah suddenly be condemned to such a Misa Mishuna? Then the daughter of the Caesar wanted his face, Rabbi Shmuel's face, because he looked very handsome. So they skinned him because the Caesar wouldn't spare his life. So the daughter said, give me at least his face so that I can look at it. So they started to skin him, flay him while he was alive. He reached the point of the tefillin, mitzvah bara, which was a special a mitzvah. Shima tza'aka, he let out a cry, and his dance island, the whole earth shook. There it's his and the earth trembled. We call out that his merit, his chus, should stand for all generations, says a Baskol. Then they talk about Rabbi Akiva, and as I mentioned in the past, when we're children and we hear the story of Rabbi Akiva being combed with iron combs, we think about, okay, it was a bad day. But it happened it happened day after day for months. They wanted to demoralize Klal Yisrael, and they wanted to make an example out of Rabbi Akiva, so they put him in the middle of one of these coliseums, and they would have the Romans standing around cheering on as they combed every day Rabbi Akiva's flesh, and this happened day after day. And obviously we know that he wouldn't give up, and he was happy, and his Talmidim asked him, Rebbe, how could you be happy? And he said, I always wondered how I could be Makayim B'chol Nafshecha, and now that I have the opportunity, I'm going to be sad about it. So Rabbi Akiva, Ashrecha Gucha Tar B'chol Minei Tar, right? His neshama went out, Yotza Nashmai Be'echad, and then the Baskol pulls out, Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva. Then we go to Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, who sacrificed his life giving smicha to Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim. Remember, the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died out, but there remained 5 Talmidim who needed to get smicha in order to continue the Messiah. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava risked his life. And when the Romans were coming, he stuck himself in between 2 rocks so that they couldn't pass through, and they speared him. But he told the Talmidim to run away. of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Chanina ben Chadya, in the famous story of they wrapped him in a Sefer Torah, but they put in some wet cotton, I think, or some wet material so that it shouldn't go quickly. And he was suffering terribly by being burned in the Sefer Torah, and he told the Roman who was burning him, the executioner, if you pull it out, to please pull it out. And the Roman asked him, will I get Gan Eden too? And he said yes, and he pulls out the material, and they jump in together, and he jumps in and he dies with him. Then Rabbi Yeshev HaSeifar, who Zarku v'shlichu laklav, they threw him to dogs. And Kol Bas Yatza Allah, a Baskel came out and said that he didn't miss even one mitzvah of Moshe's Torah. Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinoi, Rabbi Chutzpis, who the Gemara compares to Yonasan ben Uziel, that whenever he would learn that just like they said by Yonasan ben Uziel, that the Malachim would come to hear his Torah, and so if a bird was flying over him, it would burn up. So they said that about Rabbi Chutzpis as well. Rabbi Elazar ben Shamuel, also a very tragic story. He was in the middle, Yomer Shabbos Hayizman Kiddush, he was in the middle of saying Vayikadesh, and they stormed in and they killed him. And he ends off that again, that we call upon the death of these tzaddikim should really be like a carbon of chazeh. That Hashem, let this be the end of the karbanos. Let the death of these tzaddikim be the kapara that we need, so that finally we can experience the geula. And so we think about as we read this kinnah, think about all the individuals, the Talmidei Chachamim and individuals over the years who suffered terrible deaths, which all relates back and traces back to the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash.